This is the Undefeated Sports Network. Sport Court, and Court is in session.
What's up, everybody? This is Sport Court, and Court is in session. I am your guy, Andrew Tarbill. Joined by me to my left, as always, is our guy, resident expert on all things sport and Courty, Angelo Ace Camacho.
Sporty and Courty, baby. What's up, man?
Tonight, man?
I'm we're a little late. We had some technical issues. We wanted to start at 8. But hey, we're started. We're getting the shit going, and we are going to have a pretty quick show, but it's going to be a fun show.
Yep. We're here. You can see us and hear us, so that's what matters now.
That's right. That's right.
With that being said, man, lots going on in Chicago sports, namely with our Chicago Bears. Most recently, we've seen the Justin Fields injury. Is it an injury? Is it not? We'll get into that. We'll talk about that as well as some other topics regarding our Chicago Bears here this evening. Man, it's frustrating to be a Chicago Bears fan. We say it each and every week. It's just when we think everything's coming together, unfortunately, something bad happens, and here we are. So the Bears obviously fall to 3-8 on the season. Our predictions are looking real grim from where we started the beginning of the year at, I will say that.
Yes, we had a lot of optimism to start the season, and
we were drinking the Kool-Aid after that Cleveland preseason game a little bit. But
I mean, realistically though, if you would have told me at this point in the year that the Bears would have been putting up 24, 30 points a game from where they were, let's just say 6 weeks ago,
it would have been laughable.
Crazy. Right, exactly.
Absolutely. So without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and jump right on in. As noted, we are Bears heavy tonight, so we might touch on a few fun topics towards the end of the show, but overall, we're going to dive into what's going on with our Chicago Bears, and starting with the Bears dropping to 3-8. So tough loss for the Chicago Bears, obviously, against Atlanta last weekend. Cordero Patterson, former Bear, has the run back for a touchdown. That's obviously one of the difference makers in the game. And then ultimately, final drive of the game, all Bears fans are well aware that Justin Fields ran it right up the middle into a pile and injured his shoulder. So there's been a lot of speculation. Schefter, I believe on Monday, came out and said that it was a torn shoulder, and then he redacted the statement.
No, that was Ian Rappaport.
Okay, that was...
Yeah, he came out and he was like, he dislocated the shoulder, and then there were like some other guys on other networks that said it's not as bad as that, and it ended up not being that bad. He practiced today, met the media and everything, So yeah,
and we will dive into the specifics, but overall, the Bears have dropped to 3-8. Frustrating start. No, I can't even say start to the season anymore. Frustrating half of the season thus far in some ways, namely the defense's ability to not be able to even stop a cold. But offensively, we do have a lot of bright spots, right? We see week in and week out for the last 6 weeks or so that Justin Fields really is the guy for Chicago moving forward.
Yep.
I just want to stop and reiterate that, because we see a lot of fair weather fans and even some in the media saying that Justin Fields still hasn't done enough. He may not be the guy. There's fans out there that are actually calling for this team to draft another quarterback next year.
That's insane to
which
me.
Is absolutely crazy, because what's your option? Are you going to go with another Ohio State guy and CJ
So
Stroud?
yeah, and that's what I was listening to. What was it, Captain J Hood on Monday morning after the game, and people were like, "Oh, the Bears should use that draft pick and trade Justin Fields and draft a quarterback because we have more time to develop." I'm like, dude, are
Why?
Right? You're seeing the quarterback you drafted developing.
Right.
Why waste more time than you have? The
Sure,
general manager set this team up to where if Fields continues to grow like this, they have a lot of opportunities to make some noise in the next couple of years.
Well, and namely, that's the thing, right? Ryan Poles has been a man of his word. When he came in here, he said he was going to tear this thing down and build it up from the ground up so it was a sustainable franchise that had long-term success for years to come. He said, we are going to take over the North, and when we do, we're not going to give it back. One of my favorite quotes.
Fourth place is kind of hard to take over first place in this situation. So,
and obviously, I don't think he was alluding to this year. I think that goes back to more of the sustained success message that has been spoken of and being able to be a competitor for years to come. With that being said, I mean, obviously, we knew there were going to be some growing pains, some hiccups this year. You trade away some core pieces to your defense for better or worse. And obviously, the defense I would say they did enough last week to win that game. Honestly, 2 turnovers. Team looked pretty good. Overall, defensively, they bent, but they didn't break.
Yeah. It was a rough game, man. Fields was 14 for 21, 153 yards, 1 touchdown, and then the end of the game interception that iced it.
Right.
He had 18 carries for 85 yards and a touchdown, which it's 85 yards. If he could drop to that and throw more, I think I'd be happier. The thing that got me worried is that he carried the ball 18 times and David Montgomery only carried the ball 17 times. So the fact that your quarterback, the fact that your quarterback had more carries than your RB1 is a little alarming. I know that, that 18th one was some miscommunication, they said, between Montgomery and Fields, but still, even it being that close is a little alarming.
A little too close for comfort, right?
Absolutely.
So going back into Justin Fields, that brings us to our next topic here. Is Justin Fields hurt or is he injured? And what we mean by that is players in the NFL can play hurt all the time, right?
Right.
Players who are injured cannot play. So,
right.
Given that distinction, Ace, I just want to know, what are your thoughts and feelings on Justin Fields' availability for Sunday? And I guess to kind of piggyback off of that, if you do believe that he's hurt and going to quote unquote play hurt, what does the offense do differently? And I guess, what is your opinion on the situation as a whole, really? Do you think that they should sit him regardless, or do you think he should play hurt if he's able to participate? What's your thoughts here?
All right, so obviously there was a lot of speculation early in the week that he was actually injured, right?
Right.
Then today the reports came out that he practiced, but he was limited in practice, and he was in some pain.
Walkthrough.
Right, and he was in some pain when he was basically doing anything. He was asked, well, what are you doing? When does it hurt? And he was like, well, when I hand the ball off, it hurts. And when I throw the ball, it hurts. So,
right.
I mean, it hurts. Then they asked him if he had to play the game today, if he would be able to, and he said no. Today's Wednesday. Usually, today, if you don't practice or if you're even questionable to play, you probably won't play Sunday.
Right.
It sounded confusing during the press conference, like they weren't sure if he would be hurt more if something happened during the game, or if it was just something that he was going to have to manage the pain with.
Right.
My thought process on this whole thing is, we've seen Justin Fields play really well for the last 6 weeks, right? And I think it's safe.
We've both agreed upon the fact that we've seen enough from him this season that if they were to sideline him for the rest of the season, not saying that's going to happen, and I don't think it will, that he is the guy moving forward, right?
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree with you. There's no reason to think that with a better offensive line and better focus on the weapons around him that he couldn't take the next step forward, right?
Right.
I think if it's an issue with pain management, I think you sit him this week and then see how he feels going into the Packer game next week. I thought earlier in the week that the Bears had the bye week next week, but they play Buffalo and then where do they play this week? Buffalo. Yeah. No, the Jets. I'm sorry.
Yep.
The Jets. It's
that
late.
Other New York team that
they play the Jets and then the Packers, and then they have their bye week. I would rather, honestly, at this point, sit him for one game. What's it going to hurt? The dude looked gassed at the end of that game against Atlanta.
Absolutely.
He spoke even before that game about how his legs were tired and he wasn't going to do as much running during practice and warm-ups and all that stuff. And you're looking at a guy who basically basically without Justin Fields, your offense is nothing, right?
Right.
And
I mean, David Montgomery, yes, but you can't
run
the ball 60 times a game and expect to win. So
right, you need something, and the fact about Fields is that his legs allow the offense to just move a little differently than if it was just give the ball to Montgomery and see what happens.
Right.
I don't think now if they were in a position where it was, they gotta win the next 2 games to get into the playoffs, and then I would say play him. But where are you going right now at 3-8? Nowhere.
Not to the playoffs.
Right.
I mean,
and you've watched him develop pretty well. And realistically, I would rather him be healthy going into the Packer game. And obviously, the Bears versus the Packers is scary all the time. But
of course,
I think if he's 100% going into that game, I think the outcome is a lot different than it was earlier on in the year.
So that was my thought exactly. Just to reiterate, if he's injured, obviously he shouldn't play. But if he can play hurt and play, I would say it like this. I think in the grand scheme of things, a 75 to 80% healthy Justin Fields is more effective than a 100% healthy Trevor Siemian. That's just my personal opinion. I don't think that Simeon's going to go out there and be a world beater by any means if he does have to play. I think he can manage the offense. He's a game manager at best. You know, you look at your guys, I don't even want to compare him to Alex Smith, but Alex Smith is always like that number one game managing quarterback to me. When you look at a guy that's going to not lose you a game but won't win you the game either, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So ultimately, I think that if Fields can play, he should, as long as it doesn't risk further injury. And, you know, Coach Eberflus basically said, well, we'll shoot him up and he'll be fine.
Yeah. And then he was like, we'll leave it up to him to make the decision on if he wants to play or not. Like, I just feel like that's playing with danger.
Yeah, because Fields is a competitor, right? And we all know that he's got the desire to be out there. So,
right. I mean, look at him in college, right?
Shots of painkiller in his shoulder, and he goes out there and gets, I don't even want to say it, but gets hit again in that same shoulder forcibly. And now we're looking at a much more sustained situation. It would be very frustrating for Bears fans. So you have to weigh the risks, right?
The worst thing that could happen to this team is for this kid to get hurt bad enough to where it hinders his offseason and potentially costs him the first few weeks of next year.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, you look at it, I hate to go back to previous players, but Mitch did have a similar shoulder injury on his non-throwing arm, and it changed his willingness and ability to run
100%
significantly after the fact. So although I don't think that's going to be an issue with Fields, I think he's a tough kid, and he's like, shit happens, we're going to brush
I mean, he
this
played
off.
with broken ribs in college, against
Right.
Clemson. So the dude's tough as nails.
Broken ribs and a sprained hip.
Right.
In the same game.
Mm-hmm.
And still put up monster numbers, but that's beside the point. I mean, ultimately, if he's able to play and, the risk is low to minimal, I would say he should play, but you just have to manage it. And as a coach, I don't think it's Justin Fields' decision, honestly. I have not said a lot of negative about Matt Eberflus since he's came to Chicago, but the way that he addressed that at the presser today and said, well, it's going to be ultimately up to Justin if he thinks he can manage the pain. I get you want your quarterback's opinion, and, that should be valued. Don't get me wrong. I like that he communicates with him one-on-one in that aspect, and he knows kind of how Justin's feeling. But at the same time, at the end of the day, you're a coach of this football team, hopefully for years to come, and you have to weigh it from a managerial perspective.
Right.
Hey, if this guy is truly our franchise moving forward, is it even worth playing him in a game that, I mean, the Jets are starting Mike White.
Right. They're not even playing their right. The only thing the Jets have is their defense right now, and their defense is excellent at getting to the quarterback.
That's what worries me the most is the New York Jets obviously have one of the strongest defenses in football right now. They're top 5. And if
I read the stat correctly, I don't think they blitzed at all versus the Jets. I think they just went 4-man rush the whole game, and they were able to get to Zach Wilson no problem. I mean, not Zach Wilson, Mac Jones. Too many young quarterbacks. New
England, yes. No, you're absolutely correct. And that's what kind of scares me moving forward is if he's on the cusp and he says, yes, I can play, and Flus is like, okay, let's give you 3 shots in your shoulder and you can go out there wearing a sling or whatever, I don't know. If he goes out onto the field on Sunday and he's got a sling on his arm and he's out there, or, it's noticeably set in some sort of medical wrap or whatever you want to call it, that's not a good look, and that doesn't make me feel good as a Bears fan.
And here's the other thing, right? You're working with a kid who is already, in the beginning of the year, was kind of gun-shy in terms of this offense, right? And he's finally starting to find his role and his mojo in this offense, and now you want him to have to change the way he's playing because of an injury, which to me seems like it's just going to throw another hiccup in the development. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I don't disagree. I think if he does play, I think we see a lot of what we saw late in the third and early in the fourth quarter where he was running, but it was more east-west to try to get a defender to break coverage, and then he tosses the ball downfield, which honestly, I liked seeing that a little bit. Part of me was like, okay, he's getting these DBs to bite, and then he's chucking the ball to a receiver. That's cool. I can live with that. There's still those moments where we see those Fields throws, man. I mean, you talk about the one, he threaded the needle to Cole Kmet over the middle of the field. Cole Kmet makes a hell of a catch one-handed.
One-handed and getting hit.
And then David Montgomery, he literally drops the ball in the basket on the sideline to him. The touchdown to Mooney early in the game drops the ball in the basket in the corner of the end zone, puts it in the exact right spot. Although the numbers aren't there yet, passing yardage-wise, the efficiency, as I've said the last few weeks, has been tremendous. And you still see those splash plays with the limited amount of resources that he has. You still see those splash plays where it's like, okay, that's my quarterback. This is the guy that I can believe in. But going back to his injury, if it hinders his growth at all by him going out there playing hurt, them having to change things schematically, it's the wrong move. I think
absolutely
you only put him out there if he's 100% comfortable and it doesn't take 3 or 4 shots of painkillers in the shoulder to make the game bearable. Like, that's crazy that, I mean, sure, that happens in the NFL, but for them to speak so openly about it today and be like, well, we have things we can give him for that pain. Like, okay,
the thing that's crazy,
but that shouldn't be your plan, right? Your plan should not be
like you
painkillers to
said,
the
this
shoulder.
this game means nothing to the Bears, right? It's
Exactly.
the Jets. They don't have nothing happens if you win or lose this game,
It's
except your
the
draft.
goddamn Jets.
Your draft stock goes maybe one spot difference. Right now, I think they're projected at the 3rd spot in the draft, and realistically, even with Justin Fields playing at 100%, the Jets defense is so good that it would still be a struggle for this team, I feel, to put up the points needed to win.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously that goes back to what I said in the intro, that the Bears can't stop a cold on defense. So when you are playing a team that's got an elite defense such as the Jets, and I think it's fair to call the Jets defense elite at this point, right? Sauce Gardner steps in over there, and they've got a bunch of big name pieces on the defensive line that have been playing really, really well. Going against an elite defense like that, playing hurt doesn't favor our quarterback. Ultimately, so we can move forward, Ace, I'm going to say this. I think the Bears sit Justin Fields on Sunday. I don't think ultimately they have any intention of playing him. I think it's a Matt Eberflus ruse that he's not putting up very good, because he, in the presser on Tuesday, said, oh yeah, I have all the faith in the world that he can play on Sunday. And they were like, no, we're talking about Justin. And he, I don't know, and then he backpedals. It's like, I get it. You don't want to reveal something to the other team, but they told you today that they're starting their backup because Zach Wilson can't take accountability when they can only score 3 points in the NFL.
Well, Zach Wilson's awful.
The one thing that he's good at is slaying his mom's friends.
That's right. That's it. That's it.
That's a t-shirt that Barstool Sports made now, so I might have to order me one. But anyways, moving forward, man, I think that Justin Fields sits this weekend. Do you agree?
I think that's the smartest move, yes.
On to the next topic. Rolling through Mr. Saquon Barkley. So, seen a lot of speculation on Twitter over the last couple days. I believe that Saquon actually said something along the lines of, I would be interested in joining the Bears if I don't rejoin the Giants next year, which obviously I'm paraphrasing, but Saquon Barkley is an elite running back in this league. I think he's still got a lot of good years left in the tank. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's very dynamic, very shifty. As much as I love David Montgomery, if we move on from David Montgomery, I would be okay with Saquon Barkley coming to the Chicago Bears in a heartbeat. My one concern would be the amount of contract money that he would want. He would obviously want a very front-loaded deal, as most running backs do when they come off of hot seasons. And you know it better than anyone, Angelo. I've been very hesitant, and I've said in the past many, many times, you do not pay running backs in this league. Nope. So what would Saquon Barkley require to come to Chicago would be the real question. Would he take a team-friendly deal to potentially win a Super Bowl in a couple years? A couple years. I know we're not winning the Super Bowl this year, people. I know next year we may not be in playoff contention either, but we are trending in the right direction. So, does he come and take a team-friendly deal? So 2, maybe 3 years down the road, when this franchise is built from the ground up, as Ryan Poles has stated he's going to do, he has a chance at a Super Bowl before the end of his career. What's your thoughts on this Barkley news, Ace? Is it all trash? Do you want no part in it, or are you drinking the Kool-Aid? What's up, brother?
Realistically, the Bears aren't going to sign David Montgomery back, right? He's had 132 attempts for 501 yards, 3 touchdowns. That's 15th in attempts and 23rd in yardage for David Montgomery. Saquon's had a really good year. 213 for attempts with 953. That's second in both those. 6 touchdowns, which is 9th in the NFL. I still don't think you pay a guy like Saquon Barkley, simply because, 1, I don't think you pay running backs at all. 2, the guy has injury history, and I know you said, well, if if he wants to take a team-friendly deal in a couple years, the Bears, does he really have a couple years like that left in him? Running backs, man, it's like they fall off a cliff.
How old is Saquon Barkley? Look that up while I speak to this point for me, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
Saquon Barkley has been
25.
dynamic. 25. Okay, so Saquon Barkley is 25. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Most running backs, their ceiling is, I'm going to say 26, 27 at the oldest, before you start to see that stiff decline. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. Todd Gurley is officially retired from the NFL at the age of 27.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and
right, 100. There's a prime example. Right, dude was phenomenal.
Yeah, he was an all-pro almost record-setting player, and obviously Pro Bowl selection many times. Led his team to a lot of successful games and burned out. Le'Veon Bell is now a quote-unquote professional boxer and is no longer in the NFL. Another prime example. Time and time again, man. I mean, and here's a couple examples of why you don't pay running backs and their expendability. Ezekiel Elliott underperforming this year. Tony Pollard steps up, plays very, very well. Joe Mixon gets hurt on Sunday for the Cincinnati Bengals. Samaje Perine steps up, plays very, very well. You see the trend I'm getting here, at Angelo. It's ultimately, even if the Bears move on from David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert becomes the number one back in the system, now you've got Herbert and Ebner, and maybe you go out and pick up another guy in the 5th round. Khalil Herbert was a 5th round pick, was he not?
I think so, yes. I believe you're correct.
4th or 5th round. So, you know, you can go get those guys out of the draft relatively cheap and not give up a lot of capital. And then you have a guy who's fresh, ready to go for, 3 to 4 years. The days of, the days of guys like Frank Gore going for 20 seasons before they finally retire are in the past when it comes to running back. Jordan Howard is sitting on his couch somewhere watching football right now.
Yep.
It's time and time again. We could sit here and I could go through 1,000 examples of why you don't pay running backs.
Khalil Herbert was a 6th round pick.
A 6th round
pick. 217th.
So that even solidifies my point a little bit more there. 6th round pick, and you have a guy who's part of the top rushing tandem in the NFL.
He's one of the top rushers in the NFL right now.
Right.
Like,
ultimately, you don't expend the, what would Saquon Barkley want? $20 million a year?
Oh,
I'm just throwing a number out there.
There ain't no way you paid. And here's the thing: even if you brought Saquon to the Bears, with the O-line, spending money on him is going to cost you potential improvements on the O-line. So really, what is he going to give you with a bad O-line? Nothing.
Right. You saw what Ezekiel Elliott did last year with Dallas's bad offensive line when he was healthy.
Yep.
Time and time again, man, it all comes down to the offensive line. That's the Chicago Bears need to focus on 3 things in this offseason. Truing up that offensive line, getting playmakers on the defensive side of the ball, and getting 1 to 2 more weapons for Justin Fields. I'm going to give this team the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to say they really only need 1 more weapon at receiver. You've got Chase Claypool now. As he develops into the offense, I think you're going to see him blossom into the player that he was his rookie year again. He just has to get comfortable, right? Nobody thought he was going to come in 2 to 3 weeks, he was going to start making splash plays for 100 yards. I mean, if you did, you're naive. That's not how learning a new playbook works in the NFL. You have to get up to speed. It takes practice and rhythm with your quarterback. He's staying after practice with Justin Fields, taking extra reps, doing everything right to learn the playbook, but we got to give Claypool some time. So, looking at the offense, the receivers as a whole, Chase Claypool and Darnell Mooney are solid 2 and 3 options, I would say. You really just need to get a number one. You still don't really have a true number one receiver. That
Yep.
big-bodied guy that can fight and go up for 50-50 balls. I mean, we've seen Cole Kmet doing it, but ultimately he's still a tight end. So, I mean, it works. Don't get me wrong. It works for Kansas City. We saw our guy Travis Kelce with the hat trick the other night, 3 tutties, and
Bro, that offense is just insane, right?
everyone that had him in fantasy football was happy. But ultimately, back to the Bears offense specifically, man, guys like N'Keal Harry and Byron Pringle are 2 of the most sought-after free agents going into next season, according to
And
a
N'Keal
lot
Harry
of-
can't even get on the field.
according to a lot of experts, and N'Keal Harry
Right.
can't even get on the field, which that kind of in itself surprises me. I personally would put N'Keal Harry out there over Byron Pringle, but maybe they're seeing, Pringle's just one big play away from making a big impact on this. I don't know.
It is really weird how they're playing with the wide receivers, right? Like, I understand Velus Jones has struggled, but at this point in the year, you have nothing to lose by playing him. I would have
To see
Mooney,
what you have, right?
right, 100% to get him more comfortable in the offense. And by the end of
Right.
the year, if he's not comfortable, well, then maybe you look at not playing him as much. But
Maybe
I'd
there's a
be-
reason that he's 25 years old and is a rookie on
Right.
this team.
He played more seasons in the NFL or in college than anybody else ever. I think he played 6 years in college, didn't he? Because of COVID.
I think you're right because of COVID and
Right.
then a red shirt year. Yeah.
Yep.
So
And I would have Mooney, Claypool, Jones, and Harry would be the maybe not in that whatever order. Wide receiver 1 through 4. Those would be the 4 guys I'd focus
And here's
on.
the interesting thing about the Bears' offensive approach. They have asked every receiver to learn the X, Y, and Z. So you've got guys who are traditionally not slot receivers, like Chase Claypool's a big-bodied heat. You could argue that Chase Claypool's got the frame to be your number one receiver.
Yeah.
If he obviously needs to develop and hit that ceiling, but just body-wise, 6'4", 235 pounds, I believe is what he comes in at right now, 240 pounds, somewhere in there. He's a big-bodied guy for a wide receiver. He has the ability to go up there and get those 50-50 balls. You just need to tailor the offense to him to give him those opportunities to potentially become a number one.
Absolutely.
I mean, with that being said, this offense isn't as bad off as people think it is. Yet, sure, you don't have an Antonio Brown before he went crazy, or a Alshon Jeffrey when he was still really good. You don't have that guy that, hey, that's my number one. I know he's going to come down with the ball every time. A Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp's a bad example because he's kind of small for a number one receiver, but the Rams make it work and he's hurt right now. But even a guy like Amari Cooper, or, just one of those splash impact wide receivers, you get one guy like that, and this offense is hitting on all cylinders as long as you true up the offensive line.
Absolutely. That's got to be their number. That and an edge rusher need to be their main focus going into next season.
There are some very talented edge rushers projected to go early on in the draft. My question, before we get out of here, I got to touch on this just for sake of my fandom. The Bears have the number 3 pick in the draft right now, based on the current draft order.
Yep.
Do they draft Jalen Carter, or do they trade down and get 2 second-round picks, or a later first-round pick and a couple seconds, or a 1, 2, and 3? What does this team do you think, in the draft? I personally feel that the Bears, even if a guy like Jalen Carter's there, are going to trade down.
I think that's the best option. Like, your team is so...
There's so many holes, right?
Right. There's so many holes that you need to fill with impact players, not just players, but guys that are going to be able to come in and make an impact on your team. that if you have the third overall pick, I think the best thing for this team is to try and maybe not move so far back, but if you can move from 3 to 10 and get, the 10th pick and then, a couple seconds or a second and a third and then a next year second.
So what did the Bears give up to the Giants to move up in the first to draft Justin Fields?
First round pick.
Yes.
And then I don't know what else. Did they give up 2? No, they only gave up 1, I'm pretty sure.
Was it just the 1 pick? Okay, either way, what I'm alluding to is it's huge for a team if they have the ability to trade back and leverage that properly, especially when the Bears have so many glaring holes, as you stated. I think it's important that that's an option that's on the table. The Detroit Lions are going to draft a quarterback. They're not happy with Jared Goff, and they shouldn't be. So if the Lions want to trade up with you, well, hey, division buddy, if we're going to have to face this guy twice a year, the price is going to be a little more steep.
Yep. Well, but they already did it with the Vikings, right? They've already shown to not really mind trading assets inside the division.
With TJ Hawkinson, right?
Yep.
That absolutely blew my mind. Not to fixate on the Vikings in Detroit, but TJ Hawkinson is an absolute stud of a tight end. I mean, the kid's right up there with potential-wise. He's right up there to be a top 5 tight end in this league. And you basically trade him away for nothing. I didn't understand that one at all. But regardless, man, I think
this is what the Bears traded. They were the 20th overall, and they traded up to the 11th overall pick to get Justin Fields. They gave up the number 20 pick, a 5th rounder that year, and then a 2022 1st and 4th rounder.
So they gave up the 1st round pick that year,
and then the next year,
the 1st round pick next year, a 4th and a 5th.
Mm-hmm.
So 4 picks to move up 9 spots
to the 11th position, not even in the top 3.
Right.
So I mean, you're looking at a deal
if the Bears
where
end with a top 5 pick, they could play their cards right and get 5 picks
easily
between the current draft and the next year's.
Especially because there's so many teams out there that need a quarterback right now.
And the quarterback class is not deep coming up. It's Bryce Young and CJ Stroud.
Right.
And a bunch of other guys that...
Honestly, it would be better for the Bears to fall to the 2nd position and have that number 2 spot and wheel and deal that, because, like you said, the drop-off from the first 2 quarterbacks to the next is huge.
Huge. Significant. Who would be the 3rd projected quarterback in the draft right now? I don't even know without looking it up. That's a problem. As much as we talk football and follow the sport, that goes to tell you that there's not really another guy that shines out. Sure, there's guys around that will get drafted, but this quarterback class is weak. It's very weak. And the wide receiver class is weak too. This is a defense-heavy draft, and I think the Bears capitalize on that, filling positions at the edge, defensive line, and then the offensive line. Most importantly, you have a solidified young group in the back 4 now with Brisker, Gordon, Eddie Jackson, and Jalen Johnson. So you have a strong foundation back there to build this defense off of. Really, you get a couple edge guys and a defensive lineman, maybe a linebacker later, and you get a couple offensive linemen, whether it be in the draft or free agency. This team
because they still have money
better next year.
They still have a lot of money to spend in free agency also.
$124 million, the most cap space in the NFL right now.
Right.
Which is exactly what Ryan Poles said he was going to do, was get rid of some of that dead cap space and those ugly contracts and make room to build this team moving forward.
Yep.
So ultimately, whether Bears fans like it or not, this man has done what he said he was going to do to a T thus far, and I'm with what we've seen out of Justin, I am most excited to see what we do in the off season and see what this team looks like going into next season, because next year could really be the Bears' year. I mean, we always kind of allude to that, but next season really could be the season where this team has a breakout and turns a page, and moving forward is sustainably successful for, I want to say, years to come. That's the goal, right?
It would be year 2 of Fields and the offense. You build the offensive line. You get some guys that get to the quarterback on your defense. And I really do think teams go from worst to first all the time in the NFL. And I'm not saying they're going to jump to first, but you look at a team like imagine if Fields was put on this Jets team, right?
The Jets they would be a Super Bowl contender.
Right, because of that defense. Right, exactly, 100%. I think that that's something that, as Bear fans, we can look forward to for next season. This year, it's always been about the development of Fields, and I think we've seen enough to know that with the right pieces around, with the right pieces around him, I see nothing but sky's the limit for him.
The arrow is pointing upwards for our young quarterback, Justin Fields.
That's right.
So those of you who want to move on from Justin Fields and draft a quarterback next year, you're crazy. Get it out of here. We don't want that negativity around here.
That's right.
With that being said, man, it's been a good show, guys. We appreciate you joining us. Thanks for jumping in. We've covered a lot of Bears talk here over the last nearly hour, and as always, we will be back talking more Bears during our pregame show. And to end the show, as always, we have to add the tidbit that the Packers suck. There at the bottom of the screen. Sharon Rodgers is on their way out, so
Sharon, I like it.
Hopefully Justin Fields and the Bears are able to beat the Packers next week. That would make me very happy.
That would be so nice. And I'm not going to jump ahead because Rodgers always destroys the Bears. But it would be real satisfying, right? To basically be like, hey, it's not the Packers division anymore. People already know that, but then for the Bears to come out and beat Aaron Rodgers, I think it would be impressive.
It would be a we own you moment, even if it's only for one half of the season.
That's right.
So with that being said, guys, thanks for joining us as always. I am Tarbill. He is Ace. You can follow us as well as the Undefeated Sports Network on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. Please be sure to like and subscribe and follow for all of the latest information regarding all Chicago sports. We are live weekly on Sundays doing our pregame show between 10 and 11 a.m. depending on our schedule. But we are here with you each and every Sunday to bring you the best Bears pregame coverage available. That's right. As always, we appreciate each and every one of you.
Everybody have a safe holiday.
Have a safe and happy Thanksgiving.
That's right.
We will see you on Sunday, and we'll be hyped up talking Bears then. So have a good night, everyone. We'll see you soon.